No one had seen the night train for 30 years. No one, except the people who were never meant to find it. And tonight, at exactly midnight, Ryan heard its whistle coming from the abandoned railway station. The strange thing was that no train was supposed to arrive. There had not been a train on that railway line for 30 years. Ryan stood beneath the pale moonlight and listened. At first, the sound was so distant that he thought it was only the wind. Then he heard it again, a long, soft whistle. Ryan slowly turned toward the old railway station. The station had been abandoned for many years. Its wooden walls were dark with age. The paint on the doors had faded. The old railway clock stood above the empty platform, covered in dust. Tick, tock, tick, tock. The night was quiet, very quiet. There were no cars on the road, no voices, no lights from nearby houses, only the moon, the stars, and the gentle movement of the trees. Ryan stood alone beneath the silver light. He looked down the railway tracks. At first, he saw nothing, only darkness. Then, far away, a small golden light appeared. Ryan held his breath. The light moved slowly through the mist. It grew brighter and brighter. A soft sound began to rise from the tracks. Click, clack, click, clack. Ryan knew that sound. It was the sound of a train. But no train had traveled on those tracks for 30 years. The golden light came closer, slowly, very slowly. The shape of an old black train began to appear through the mist. Its windows glowed with warm golden light. Steam drifted around its wheels. The train did not rush. It moved calmly through the darkness, as if it had been traveling for a very long time. Ryan stood perfectly still. The night train came closer. The wheels made a soft, steady rhythm. Click, clack, click, clack. Then, slowly, the mysterious train stopped beside the empty platform. For a moment, everything became silent. The wind stopped. The night train moved quietly through the darkness. Ryan stood beside the window and watched the world outside. The old railway tracks disappeared behind him. The station was gone. The road was gone. And soon, even the familiar trees disappeared into the night. Outside, the landscape slowly changed. The train passed through a quiet forest. Tall trees stood on both sides of the railway. Their branches reached toward the sky, shining softly beneath the moonlight. The mist moved between the trees. Sometimes it covered the tracks completely. Sometimes it disappeared, revealing the silver rails beneath. Ryan watched everything in silence. The train was warm. The lights above him glowed gently, and beneath his feet, the steady rhythm of the wheels continued. Click, clack, click, clack. For a while, Ryan simply stood there. He did not feel tired. He did not feel afraid. There was something peaceful about the train, something that made the world outside seem very far away. After some time, Ryan noticed a small table beside one of the seats. On the table was an old brass lamp. Beside the lamp was a small silver pocket watch. Ryan slowly picked it up. The watch was cold. He opened the cover. The hands were moving, but the time was strange. The watch showed exactly 12 minutes past midnight. Ryan looked at the railway clock inside the carriage. It also showed 12 minutes past midnight. He looked at the watch again. The second hand was not moving. It was completely still. Ryan placed the watch back on the table. Then he noticed something else. A small envelope. It was lying beneath the lamp. The envelope was old and yellow. There was no name written on it, no address, no mark. Ryan looked around the carriage. There was still no one there. He picked up the envelope. For a moment, he wondered if he should open it. Then the train moved gently around a bend. The golden lights swayed softly. Ryan looked down at the envelope.
Ryan walked slowly toward the sound. The humming continued somewhere ahead. It was soft and gentle, almost like a lullaby. The train moved smoothly beneath him. The golden lamps swayed slightly as the carriage passed through the darkness. Ryan reached the end of the carriage. There was another door. He placed his hand on the handle. The humming stopped. Ryan stood very still. For a moment, there was no sound at all. Then someone spoke. "Ryan." The voice was soft, very soft. Ryan slowly opened the door. Beyond it was a small, quiet carriage, and beside the window sat an old woman. She was wearing a long gray coat. Her silver hair rested gently around her shoulders. She looked out at the darkness. Ryan knew her. His heart seemed to stop. "Grandma?" The old woman slowly turned toward him. She smiled. It was the same warm smile Ryan remembered from his childhood. "Hello, Ryan." Ryan stood in the doorway. He could not move. He could not speak. The old woman gently touched the seat beside her. "Come and sit down." Ryan slowly walked over. He sat beside her. For a while, neither of them spoke. Outside the window, the moon moved across the sky. The forest passed silently. The train continued its peaceful journey. Click, clack. Click, clack. Ryan looked at his grandmother. "I thought you were gone." His grandmother smiled gently. "People are never truly gone when they are remembered." Ryan looked down at his hands. "Where are we going?" His grandmother looked toward the window. "The train takes everyone where they need to go." Ryan watched the moonlight move across the glass. "But I don't know where I need to go." "You will." Her voice was calm. There was no fear in it, only patience. The train moved deeper into the night. Ryan noticed that the carriage seemed warmer now. The golden light filled the space around them. His grandmother reached into her coat pocket. She took out a small silver key. Then she placed it. Ryan stood on the golden path beneath the endless night sky. Behind him, the small door of the night train remained open. Warm golden light spilled onto the path. For a moment, Ryan looked back. The train was still there. Its black carriages rested quietly in the darkness. Steam moved slowly around the wheels. But no one stood inside the windows. No one waited on the platform. The train seemed to be waiting for him. Ryan looked ahead. The path stretched into the distance. Tiny lights floated above it like stars. They moved slowly through the air. Some were bright, some were soft, and some were almost impossible to see. Ryan took one careful step forward. The golden path glowed beneath his feet. A gentle breeze moved through the darkness. It carried the quiet scent of rain and old trees. Ryan walked slowly. He did not know where the path was leading, but something about it felt peaceful. After a while, he noticed a small wooden sign beside the path. It was old and covered with silver dust. There were only 3 words written on it. "Remember the way home." Ryan stopped. He looked at the sign for a long moment. Then he continued walking. The path curved gently between tall, silent trees. Their branches reached high into the sky. Small golden lights hung from them. They looked like lanterns.
but there were no ropes, no hooks. The lights simply floated among the branches. Ryan looked up. One of the lights slowly moved downward. It stopped beside him. Inside the light, Ryan saw a memory. He saw his old bedroom. He saw the small wooden shelf beside his bed. He saw a photograph of his grandmother. Ryan reached toward the light. The memory disappeared. The light floated away. Ryan stood quietly. He suddenly understood. The path was showing him memories. Memories from his life. Some were happy. Some were sad. Some he had almost forgotten. He continued walking. Soon, the trees began to disappear. The path opened into a wild.
The journey has only just begun. Ryan read the words again. Then the photograph became warm in his hands. A soft, golden light moved across the picture. The image slowly changed. The boy, standing beside his grandmother, was no longer a stranger. Ryan recognized him. It was his grandfather. Ryan had seen old photographs of him before, but never this one. His grandfather was young in the picture. He was standing beside the same night train. Ryan looked out of the window. The train moved through a quiet valley. The moonlight rested on the hills. The stars seemed closer than before. Ryan looked down at the photograph again. His grandfather was holding something in his hand. A small, silver pocket watch. Ryan reached into his pocket. The pocket watch from the first carriage was still there. He slowly took it out. The watch had stopped at 12 minutes past midnight. But now, the second hand began to move. Tick, tick, tick. Ryan watched it carefully. Then the train suddenly slowed. The gentle rhythm beneath his feet became quieter. Click, clack, click, clack. Ryan looked through the window. Ahead, a small station appeared. It was not the station where he had first boarded the train. This station was much older. Its platform was covered with soft white snow. A single lantern hung beside the entrance. The light flickered gently in the cold air. The night train moved closer. Then it stopped. Ryan looked around the carriage. The golden lights were still glowing, but something had changed. The train no longer felt empty. He could hear quiet sounds from the other carriages, a distant laugh, the turning of a page, the gentle sound of someone walking. Ryan stood. He slowly opened the door to the next carriage. This time, there were people inside. The passengers sat quietly in their seats. Some looked out of the windows. Some were reading. Some were sleeping. No one spoke. No one seemed surprised to see Ryan. An old man said. Ryan stared at the door. A thin line of golden light shone beneath it. The train continued moving through the darkness. Click, clack, click, clack. Ryan looked around the carriage. The passengers were still sitting quietly. The old man had closed his eyes. No one seemed to notice the new door. Ryan slowly stood. He walked toward it. With every step, the golden light beneath the door became brighter. When Ryan reached the door, he placed his hand on the handle. It was warm, very warm. He looked back one last time. The old man opened his eyes. "Some doors," he said quietly, "only appear when you are ready." Ryan looked at him. "What is behind it?" The old man smiled. "You will see." Ryan turned back to the door. Then he opened it. Beyond the door was a small platform. The platform floated in complete darkness. There were no tracks, no station,
no walls. Only a wooden floor beneath Ryan's feet and thousands of stars above him. The night train was gone. Ryan stood alone. The air was calm and still. Far ahead, the tall wooden door stood beneath the stars. It was exactly like the door he had seen from the train. Ryan slowly walked toward it. The silver key rested in his hand. The closer he came, the larger the door appeared. It was made of dark wood. Small silver stars were carved into its surface. At the center was a silver lock. Ryan placed the key inside. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the lock turned. The door opened slowly. A warm breeze moved through the darkness. Beyond the door was a vast, quiet library. Ryan stepped inside. Bookshelves stretched farther than he could see. Golden lamps floated high above him. Thousands of books rested on the shelves. Some were old, some were new. Some were so large that Ryan could not imagine carrying them. The library was completely silent. Ryan looked around. On the nearest shelf, one book began to glow. It slowly moved away from the shelf. Then it floated through.
Ryan walked toward the golden light. The library slowly disappeared behind him. The endless shelves faded into darkness. The floating lamps became smaller, and the sound of the night train grew louder. Click, clack, click, clack. Ryan continued walking. The golden light became brighter with every step. Then, suddenly, he found himself standing on a railway platform. The platform was completely empty. Snow rested quietly on the ground. A single lantern hung above the tracks. And beside the platform stood the night train. Its windows glowed warmly in the darkness. The train door was open. Ryan looked behind him. The library was gone. There was only the empty platform, the snow, the lantern, and the train. Ryan slowly stepped inside. The carriage was different now. The seats were covered in soft blue fabric. The golden lamps glowed gently above them, and on the seat beside the window was a small wooden box. Ryan walked over and picked it up. The box was warm. He opened it. Inside was the silver pocket watch, the same watch he had found at the beginning of his journey. But now, the hands were moving. The time was changing. 12 minutes past midnight. Then 13 minutes, 14 minutes. Ryan watched in silence. The watch was finally moving forward. He placed it gently inside the box. Then he noticed something beneath it, a small piece of paper. Ryan unfolded it. There was a single sentence written on it. Time moves forward when you do. Ryan read the sentence twice. Then he looked out the window. The night train began to move. The snowy platform slowly disappeared. The lantern became smaller, and the darkness returned. Ryan sat beside the window. For a while, he watched the snow falling outside. The train moved through a silent forest. The trees were covered in white. The moon shone softly above them. Everything looked peaceful. Ryan slowly began to feel tired. The steady rhythm of the wheels filled the carriage. Ryan walked home beneath the fading moonlight. The road was quiet. The trees stood still, and the world slowly began to wake. A soft gray light appeared along the horizon. Ryan continued walking. His backpack felt lighter than before, but the silver pocket watch in his hand felt strangely heavy. He kept looking at it. The hands moved normally now. Tick-tock, tick-tock. Ryan reached the end of the road. His house stood quietly in the distance. A warm light glowed from one of the upstairs windows. He stopped. Everything looked exactly as it had before. The same garden,
the same wooden fence, the same old front door. For a moment, Ryan wondered if he had really been away at all. Maybe it had all been a dream. Maybe he had simply fallen asleep beside the railway station. Maybe there had never been a train. Ryan slowly opened the front door. The house was quiet. Everyone was asleep. He walked upstairs without making a sound. When he reached his bedroom, he stopped. The room looked exactly as he had left it. His bed, his books, his small wooden shelf. And beside the bed was the photograph of his grandmother. Ryan walked over and picked it up. He looked at the picture carefully. It was the same photograph he had found in the wooden box. His grandmother was young. His grandfather stood beside her, and between them was the night train. Ryan turned the photograph over. The words were still there. The journey has only just begun. Ryan smiled softly. Then he placed the photograph beside his bed. He put the silver pocket watch next to it. The watch continued to tick. Tick, tock. Tick, tock. Ryan changed his clothes and climbed into bed. For the first time that night, he felt completely tired. He closed his eyes. The sound of the train wheels still seemed to echo somewhere in his mind. Click, clack, click, clack. Slowly, Ryan began to fall asleep. But just before he drifted away, he heard something. A soft sound,
The golden light moved closer. Ryan watched it through the window. The night train continued forward, carrying him deeper into the darkness. The old notebook rested on his lap. He had read the final sentence several times. If you are reading this, then the night train has chosen you. Ryan looked down at the silver pocket watch. The hands were moving slowly. Tick, tock, tick, tock. For the first time, Ryan wondered if his grandfather had known that this day would come. Maybe he had known that one day Ryan would hear the whistle. Maybe he had known that Ryan would step onto the train. Maybe the notebook had been waiting for him all these years. The train moved through the night. Outside the window, the landscape slowly changed. The forest disappeared. The hills disappeared. Soon the train was traveling across a wide, open plain. The moon was high above the horizon. The grass moved gently in the night wind. Far away, small golden lights floated above the ground. Ryan watched them carefully. They looked like tiny lanterns. Some moved slowly, some stayed perfectly still, and some seemed to follow the train. Ryan opened the notebook again. There were many empty pages. He turned one page, then another. At first there was nothing. Then a sentence slowly appeared. "The next station is waiting." Ryan looked toward the front of the train. The golden lights outside began to gather together. They formed a long line beside the railway. The night train began to slow down. The wheels became quieter. Click, clack, click, clack. Ryan stood up. He looked through the window. A station appeared ahead. It was unlike any station he had ever seen. There were no buildings, no signs, no benches. Only a long wooden platform surrounded by darkness. At the end of the platform stood a tall clock tower. The clock had no hands. Instead, its face was completely covered with small silver stars. The train slowly stopped. The door opened. Ryan stood completely still. The figure at the end of the passage held a small lantern in one hand. The light moved gently across the walls. For a moment, Ryan could not see the person's face, only the outline of a long coat, only the soft glow of the lantern. Then the figure began to walk toward him, slowly, step by step. The sound of footsteps echoed through the underground station. Ryan looked around. The white train had already disappeared. The little girl was gone. Only Ryan and the stranger remained. The figure came closer. The lantern light touched his face. Ryan stopped breathing. He knew him. The man standing before him was young, very young, but Ryan had seen his face many times. In old photographs, in the picture beside his grandmother, in the photograph from the wooden box. It was his grandfather. Ryan stared at him. "Grandpa?" The young man smiled. "Hello, Ryan." Ryan slowly walked closer. "But you're young." His grandfather looked down at himself. Then he smiled gently. "Time does not move the same way on the night train." Ryan looked around the empty station. "Where are we?" His grandfather lifted the lantern. "Between journeys." Ryan looked down the dark passage. "What does that mean?" His grandfather began walking. Ryan followed him. The passage was quiet. Small silver stars glowed on the walls as they passed. Some stars were bright, some were almost invisible. Ryan looked at them carefully. "Are these stars?" His grandfather nodded. "Every star is a journey." Ryan looked at him. "Every star?" "Every journey that has ever been taken on the night train." Ryan looked at the endless walls. There were thousands of stars, maybe millions. Some were large, some were tiny, some flickered softly. Ryan wondered how many people had traveled on the mysterious train. His grandfather continued walking. "Your grandmother traveled here too." Ryan looked at him. "She did?" His grandfather nodded. The memory train moved through the darkness. Ryan sat quietly beside the window. The red scarf rested in his hands. Outside, the world was covered in a soft white light. He could not see the tracks. He could not see the sky. He could only see the golden light ahead. The train moved slowly toward it. Click, clack, click, clack. Ryan looked down at the scarf. It still carried the faint scent of his grandmother's house. A scent of old books, warm tea, and rain falling against the windows. Ryan closed his eyes. For a moment, he could almost hear her voice. Then the train began to slow. The golden light ahead became brighter. Ryan opened his eyes. A small station appeared outside the window. The platform was empty. A single wooden bench stood beneath a large tree, and beside the bench was a little boy. Ryan stared at him. The boy was sitting alone. He was holding a small wooden train. Ryan knew that train. It was the same toy he had seen in the room of memories. It was the same toy he had played with when he was very young. Ryan slowly stood. The train stopped. The door opened. Ryan stepped onto the platform. The little boy looked up. Ryan recognized him immediately. It was himself, a much younger Ryan. The little boy looked sad. Ryan slowly walked closer. "What are you doing here?" The boy looked at him. "I am waiting." "For who?" The boy looked down the railway tracks. "For my grandmother." Ryan sat beside him. For a while, neither of them spoke. The station was quiet. A soft wind moved through the leaves of the tree. Ryan looked at the little wooden train. "Do you like trains?" The boy nodded. "My grandmother says they can take you anywhere." Ryan smiled. She was right. The little boy looked at him. "Are you going somewhere?" Ryan thought for a moment. "I think so." "Where?" Ryan looked toward the golden light. "I don't know yet." The boy was quiet. Then he asked, "Are you lost?" Ryan looked at him. The night train waited beneath the golden lights. Ryan stood at the open door. Beside him was the mysterious woman from the platform. She held a small suitcase in one hand. In the other hand, she held a silver pocket watch. Ryan looked at her carefully. There was something familiar about her. Not her face, not her voice, something else, something he could not explain. The woman stepped inside the train. Ryan followed her. The carriage was warm and quiet. Golden lights glowed softly above the seats. The windows reflected the darkness outside. The woman placed her suitcase beside the window. Then she sat down. Ryan sat across from her. For a while, neither of them spoke. The train began to move. Slowly, quietly. The platform disappeared behind them. Click, clack, click, clack. Ryan looked at the woman. "Who are you?" The woman looked out the window. "My name is Clara." "Do you know my grandfather?" Clara smiled. "I knew him a long time ago." Ryan leaned forward. "How?" Clara looked at the silver pocket watch in her hand. "Your grandfather and I traveled on this train together." Ryan looked at her. "When?" "Many years ago." "Why?" Clara was silent for a moment. Then she said, "We were looking for someone." "Who?" Clara looked at Ryan. "Your grandmother." Ryan stared at her. "My grandmother?" Clara nodded. "Before she met your grandfather, she had already traveled on the night train." Ryan looked confused. "But I thought my grandfather was the first person in my family to find it." Clara smiled gently. He thought so too. The train continued through the darkness. Outside the windows, the stars seemed unusually bright. Ryan looked down at the silver pocket watch. What were they looking for? Clara turned toward the window. A place called the last station. Ryan felt a chill move through him. The last station? Clara nodded. Every journey eventually leads there. Ryan looked at her. Where is it?